Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Collective Spotlight. I'm pretty much like right in the middle thirds, but I'm going to be sharing the screen with a guest, so I'm not super worried about it. Today we're doing another Kickstarter guest. Actually met this guy via the awesome Travis Gibb. He's got a really cool kind of D&D fantasy-based comic book anthology, and without any further ado, all the way from Canada, it's Gerald. How you doing, dude?
I am doing fantastic, Danny. Thank you for inviting me. Getting that invitation in the middle of another exciting show last week with Travis was like blessings upon blessings going on. So I appreciate it a lot.
Oh no, for sure, Travis. And I'm not sure if he's doing me a favor, you guys a favor, or nobody a favor. But I feel like anytime he does one of those creator hangouts, I back like 2 or 3 more Kickstarters for the store. So you were one of the lucky guys on the show. But we're a game, comics, and game store. So your comic seemed perfect for us. Actually, while we're on the subject, do you want to kind of give the people the synopsis of what you've got on Kickstarter right now?
Sure. Breakneck Fantasy Anthology is a 5-story black and white sword and sorcery anthology from creators across North and South America and Europe. We have, like I said, 5 fantastic shorts, all within the fantasy genre. And we've kind of spread it out across subgenres. So we've got more horror story, we've got silly adventure, cartoony romp, and we've got a couple great action stories, and then one diving into the depths of hell.
So here it is. It's super awesome. How did you come up? Is this your guys' first anthology?
Yeah, we've got a few slightly more experienced people on the team. I partnered with Ignacio DiMeglio first. He is the artist on Crypt Sisters in here. He's also in the chat right now.
Yes, sir.
And Ignacio has worked on a few other books and some webcomic stuff, that kind of thing. So he kind of brought me that experienced side to our art editorial. And then I worked closely with Chris Moses, who is the writer on When I Freeze Hell Over, that hell story about ice witches. He has been self-publishing heavily for about 1.5 years. He's put out a bunch of books already. He's got Red Sea Comics. So those two together really helped support me up in putting together this as our first anthology. Yeah.
And Joe says he's loving those inks. The book, I believe, is black and white, correct?
Yes, it is. Black, white, grayscale. When I ran the submissions drive, I thought black and white would be obvious, but I had to clarify for a lot of people. Absolutely grayscale. Love grayscale.
Yeah, these covers, right? Because this is a cover right here.
It says that is our cover A. That's just where the barcode's going to go, and I hadn't finalized the barcode yet. The cover is by a fantastic artist, Francesco de la Serva. He only really lives on Instagram, so I don't get to interact with him a lot. But when I found his art there, I immediately reached out like, hey, I'm starting this anthology project. I'd love for you to do the cover. And he was in right away. And he finished this in like a 1.5 weeks. It was insane.
And you got, I see here we got the names of all the creators here. So and did you edited it? You're the editor.
Yes, I gave myself the title managing editor because a lot of the teams did the majority of the work themselves. I just really brought it together, helped streamline some things, move this, check this kind of stuff. Most of the teams brought a fairly comprehensive story. I was really blessed to get some of the submissions we did, and enough submissions that I've already got some teams lined up for our second issue now that our first issue has succeeded in under 8 hours. That was another massive blessing last week of getting that initial success anxiety off.
Did you guys, so it's 21 days. Did you guys launch what, last Monday?
Tuesday, February the 1st.
Okay. So you've had literally 7 days and you guys are all good to go already.
Yep. We funded our initial goal, which was a really aggressive goal just to make sure we succeed. We wanted to get that initial goal. And now everything above and beyond this is all about getting support into our creative teams. And we're completely equal shares. As the person putting it together, I said, let me show some legitimacy. I funded the cover and a bunch of the design stuff myself. And now all profits above and beyond print and ship cost is going right into the creative teams.
Nice. I love it. I love it. So as I'm looking here, it looks like so this is 1, 2. These are the 5 stories I'm guessing, right? We've got when I freeze hell over, Meat, Jack and Beans, Tale of Zaron, and Crypt Sisters.
Yep.
Talk to me about how you guys ended up landing on the fantasy choice for this anthology.
I'm just a big fantasy nerd. That's really what it is. If I wasn't doing this comic stuff, I would be doing D&D stuff right now. That's just what it is. I have 3 regular games going on every week. I'm all in on fantasy genre. If it wasn't fantasy, it would be sci-fi. And I've already had people ask back when I was doing submissions for this, I had people asking, what about urban fantasy? What about sci-fi? I'm like, just sword and sorcery this time. If we're successful, maybe we branch out in the future. Yeah. But Breakneck is going to stay sword and sorcery fantasy because you got to have a brand.
No, and it does, and that stuff does really well. I mean, we've had success with a lot of other like sword and sorcery, and I guess what you'd call it, kind of, like knights and things like that. That era does really well, whether it's mainstream comics or not mainstream comics. We've had a lot of success. So, and this is a page here from When I Freeze Hell Over. This is beautiful. Was part of the inspiration for going grayscale any manga related, or did you guys kind of just, was it look better for fantasy?
I am not a manga person whatsoever. I've looked at it a little bit. For some reason, it just doesn't catch me for the most part. I went black and white for 2 reasons. Keep the costs down for creators, both in money for production costs and time, because color can double the time sometimes, depending on what you're trying to do. And then also lowering our production cost on the printing side. We want to be successful in a way that will help new creators get an avenue to some of their first publishing credits. And so the submissions process was geared towards that. We only required 1 character sketch and an artist portfolio to kind of show what you're thinking in regards to art that way. At first, we considered doing like a full page of art to show if you're serious or not kind of thing. But at the end of the day, we want to give new creators an outlet to get those first credits, to get that foundation under them to say, all right, I've done this anthology. Now let me hop onto these 2 other anthologies. Now let me put out a book. Because it's hard. It's hard as a new creator to find those outlets sometimes.
That's awesome. I love what you're doing. Joe actually just asked a good question. Do the 5 stories interweave or connect at any point, or are they all just singular stories?
Right now, they are all singular stories. Each team brought their own stories to their submissions process. I believe the When I Freeze Hell Over team want to continue their story. It's just kind of a first episode in this Ice Witch's journey to conquering hell. And then Crypt Sisters, which is the story that Ignacio and I have put in the anthology, is a one-shot, but we plan on continuing with the characters with other one-shots and maybe even getting them into some other anthologies as well if we can.
Cool.
Just
so it's
spread that
kind of
mythos around.
It's the first appearance of all of these characters and stuff, and it potentially can grow from here.
Exactly.
So this other story this one's from Meat, where I actually really like. Is this a kind of a goblins type of story? Meat?
Yeah. Sinnerman is the artist here. He really put a lot of effort into creating some really neat goblin orky kind of characters. He's got a very the 1980, I think it was 1980s animated Hobbit movie and Lord of the Rings movies. He has a very cool style like that. I'm super excited that he came in to work with us on this. And so he developed this, and this Meat is story about orc brother rivalry and what happens when brotherly love and brotherly rivalry enters into a goblinoid sphere, and it's not quite the same.
I like it. I like it. It's like this, as soon as I saw this, I guess I had that Tolkien feel, but it just screamed D&D to me. You know,
Yep.
you see a goblin or something like that, and you're just like, oh my gosh, I know where this is going. Jack and Beans. I like how these art styles are, and that's because I'm sure you guys had the creative teams kind of just doing their thing, but Jack and Beans has that more, like, I don't want to say goofy, but that fun-loving aesthetic to it almost. Like, I don't want to call it all ages, but it definitely seems like it'd be a fun story. Is that kind of where this one goes?
That is exactly why we picked it out and placed it in our first issue here. We have Meat is a bit darker and grisly. When I Freeze Hell Over is a bit more adventure-y, a bit more action, very magic focused. And then we have Jack and Beans, which is just this cartoony, fun adventure romp between Jack, who is a veteran adventurer, and Beans, the character we see in the middle of the first page here, he's a noob. That's really what he is. He's a noob to adventuring. He doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't have control over his emotions necessarily. So fitting that in right in the middle of the comic felt really... It's an appetite cleanser after the first two. We really stretched to bring a variety of stories in here. We didn't want it to just be hitting you in the face every story.
No, that's awesome. As soon as I saw it had that cartoon, like 90s cartoon WB, kids WB feel to it, and I absolutely love it. And then I'm guessing, right? Oh no, we have one more story before yours. This is the Tale of Zaron, and it's done entirely, written and art by Elizabeth. Is that right?
Yeah. So Elizabeth brought this story to us, pretty much complete. She had done this by herself. It hadn't seen the light of day anywhere else, and she brought it to us. And I just worked with her a little bit, moving it. There were some color spots, so we moved it into grayscale. We changed a little bit of the word bubbles and dialogue placement, that kind of stuff. But she has some immense talent, and she put this together by herself. As soon as I saw it, it went right up to the top of the list of our submissions. It was, and some of the stuff that happens later in the story. Like this is all kind of character profile stuff that we're seeing here, right? She gets into some monsters. She gets into some deeper scenery stuff going on, and she not only is she super skilled, she's also really fast. When I put out the message to the creator teams, like, hey, we're thinking about doing variant covers. If any of you guys are interested, let me know. We'll see what we can do. We'll make sure we get you bonus comps and that kind of stuff. And immediately she was like, here's 3 sketches. Which one do you like? I'm like, all of them. Okay, here's 2 that are done already. Here's another one that's done. just shooting them out. And all of them are amazing. I need her to produce more in this world. Like, she needs to be picked up for something. Like, Wizards of the Coast needs to get her to do something for them. She's amazing.
Yeah, her pencils look really amazing. Like, I know this is inked as well, but it's like I can tell that she definitely does that detail with the lines that I'm sure a lot of artists are taught if they're school taught, but like you don't see it all the time, I feel like, in independent comics. Let me ask, just because based on this preview, it honestly almost seems like that could be a silent issue. Is there dialogue in that one?
There is. It is a silent, or it is a dialogue issue, non-silent. Going through her work, it works without dialogue.
Yeah.
She is acting through these characters, and you would be able to know exactly what's going on, the exact emotions that are going on, and everything if we didn't have any dialogue at all. But she's building up a world and a mythos of her own as well. And from what I've seen, I suspect she has more from this story, and this is just a seed that she's planting right now. I'm not sure where she's going with it, But yeah, I think we'll see more of Zeron probably.
That's awesome. No, I really love this. So before I get to your story, I know you keep mentioning that you guys were taking the submissions and there was a process to picking these creative teams. How did you go about putting out your request for submissions? Like as an indie creator, how do you handle it? I know if you're DC or Marvel and you're taking submissions, I mean, everybody's knocking at your door. But as an indie creator, how did you put out that all call?
So this is a little bit of timeline work here. So I decided I wanted to do this project probably early August. I had worked early last year on a comic that I thought, oh, maybe I'll do some pitching with it, that kind of stuff. And just like a lot of comic projects, stuff fell through. Things happened. We just weren't going to be able to make it happen. And since then, I had been doing other writing, that kind of stuff. I spent a lot of time on the subreddit Comic Book Collabs, which is a place where hopeful comic creators go to try and meet other comic creators. And the regulars there kind of get a sense for who the other regulars are and who takes things seriously and who doesn't know what they're doing, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in an elitist way. I just mean it's people who have done their research, interacting with people who haven't necessarily done their research yet, and they're just starting out. And this project was based out of wanting to find a way to get people that experience and get people a way to produce shorts, the 4-6 page comics that a lot of us tell new people, no, don't try and plan your 20 issue mega series or 100 issue mega series. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you don't know yet. Write a short, 4 pages, 6 pages, beginning, middle, end. So that's where this whole thing came from. So the first place I planned on pushing this out was Comic Book Collabs, the subreddit. And we got some big notice there, people upvoting it and stuff. So lots of people got to find out about it there. And then I hit Twitter because there's a lot of amazing creators on Twitter. Other people have done anthologies. I want to shout out Doug Wood, who, if you are a creator out there looking to submit right now, Project Big Hype 2 is currently accepting submissions. Look up Doug Wood, find the submissions page for that. He's accepting 10-page proposals right now, like 10-page comic proposals, and it's also all black and white. He's a great guy to know and to work with, so I suggest that highly. Anyway, so Comic Book Collabs, I hit up a couple other subreddits. Twitter happened, and then I casually reached out to Jim Zub because, I mean, he's a fellow Canadian, and I interacted with him on Twitter a couple times and was just like, I can't like make him mad by asking him.
You can't not try.
So I was like, hey, Jim, nice to talk to you again. Do you want to be in my anthology? And so I just asked him, and he was very kind about turning me down. But then he also shouted out the link to the submissions page, because in our conversation, and this is something I try and impart to people on the Comic Collab subreddit and that kind of thing. You need to be professional. You need to, if you're wanting to work with people, you need to show them why they should work with you, or why they would be at least tempted to work with you. And that starts with just transparency and being professional. I shot my shot. I went for the stars and I fell, and Jim Zub said, no, I will not be in your starter anthology. Oh no. But I did it in a way that was polite and pleasant and showed I was taking it seriously, and he shouted us out, and that brought in a whole bunch of new interest and new eyes on the submission process. And then once I got Jim Zub to do that, I subtweeted Gail Simone and was like, hey, comic school professor, thanks so much for all you do. Will you retweet this? And then she retweeted it. Surprisingly, for all that she had the comic school stuff going, less reach than the Jim Zub tweet.
Jim Zub's just one of those guys. I feel like he's been writing stuff more recently too, as Gail has kind of done more of her own thing lately. But Gail, if you would have done that 2 or 3 years ago, I mean, Gail was at the top of DC and everything like that.
Yeah, that's true.
Too.
Yeah.
But that's awesome, and that also, like, it put eyes on the submission, but hopefully it also keeps the name in the back of the mind, and then people also will check out the Kickstarter, you know, or things like that. So
yeah, the thing about reaching out to people like that, particularly who aren't in the indie comics space, like, they both do creator-owned work, and like, it's fantastic. They're not indie comics anymore, right? They're primarily doing other stuff.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want them to tie their name to us in a way that, like, if I screw up and I make one of them look bad, right? So I sent, as thanks, I sent both of them preview copies of the book, but I didn't ask anything in return, because I didn't even ask for a shout out or anything, because I don't want them to put their name behind it. They're not associated with the book at all. I want to say thank you for the creations they do and all that kind of stuff, but they have no leverage over me. They have no way to make sure I do things correctly. And if I screw up, I don't want to hurt one of them or hurt their reputation.
Yeah. Well, no, and I've noticed, because we have a lot of local creators over here, Travis Gibb being one of them, Trey Walker from Scout Comics, Jonathan Hedrick from Scout as well, David Byrne from Scout. Gosh, Scout just lives here apparently. But we had Stephanie Phillips from DC come and visit one day, and it was funny because a lot of the guys, Trey and Jonathan, they came to get autographs and everything, because everybody's a fan, you know. But they were also really excited to just give her a copy of their book. And it's like, you know, you're a fan, and you hope that in their spare time they'll crack that book open and read it and hopefully enjoy it, you know, and at least have a positive thought of you as a creator. And I think everybody has that, you know, because all of us. So that leads me to my next, or actually, no, we're going to go to your story. Then I will ask you your comic book origin story, because everybody has their comic book origin story. So we're going to go to Crypt Sisters, which is you and Ignacio. And Ignacio's name's been popping up in my feed all over the place, because he's working with Travis on stuff, and he's just everywhere. So Ignacio did the art on this. Tell me a little bit about Crypt Sisters.
Yeah, so Crypt Sisters is a family of monster hunters that work together. So right on the first page, I make a joke about the Brothers Grimm, and it was kind of my spin on Crypt Sisters are going to be Monster of the Week kind of shorts, where we're going to see different monsters. They're going to be doing different things, but it's these 3 sisters who work together to do it, and they succeed because they're together. So in this first page, we just see one of the sisters. She's fighting on top of a cathedral in the middle of a rainstorm, fighting a werewolf demon that's on fire. And Ignacio took that and was like, yes, I'll do that. And I said, you're insane. Like, he's done such cool work getting the rain effect, getting the steam effect coming off the monster, that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's a very cool, pulpy. I really wanted that pulpy vibe of action adventure. All of them have elements of D&D in them. I would say Crypt Sisters is one of the closest to a traditional Dungeons and Dragons or tabletop RPG experience, where it's heroes fighting monsters.
Look at this guy popping in the chat. Like,
what's up, Travis? Sorry, just because he's here and he's talking, I want to shout out Travis as the kindest, most generous man to the campaign right now. He put in a book into our creators bundle, kind of without having super interacted with me before. And then when he had us on the creator hangout where we hooked up and started talking about this interview, he peer pressured me into a $10,000 stretch goal, but also provided another book for our backer numbers line of stretch goals. We just hit 125, which means all of our backers are getting a free copy of J.L. Johnson Jr.'s Ennead, The Rule of Nine, and now we're going for 150, and we'll get a copy of Travis's Cthulhu Invades Wonderland.
Ooh. That's cool. Yeah. Travis he's super nice. He's helping us out. So we actually did our own anthology, would have been March of this past year. Very similar to kind of your structure in the sense that it was kind of beginning, middle, ends, four or five. I think we did 5 stories and a short in the back. But Travis kind of ended up taking the reins on that, and he did not slap Orange Cone on the name or anything like that, but he very much was project manager on that, and he's awesome.
Yeah.
Ignacio is also in the chat. He says, "You pitched it to me. I just took this challenge." What was it like working with Ignacio on all of this?
Well, Ignacio and I have a weird history. Ignacio and I met on a Discord channel for MCDM, which are the D&D third-party producers under the banner of Matt Colville, who is a video game writer, and he wrote the Critical Role first set of comics and that kind of stuff. And they were running a D&D stream, the Chain of Acheron, and we were both big fans. I had written a fan novella just to kind of get myself back into writing after a bit of a hiatus and some writer angst, right? So I'd written a novella and put it out in the fandom, and then he posted on the Discord just, hey, here's a bunch of profiles of the characters, and they look fantastic, and they got shouted out by the show and stuff. But are there any writers here who would be interested in trying to adapt the show into a comic? And immediately I went, yes, there is. And we talked about it. I wrote up like I think it was 9-page script for a first kind of release. He put in a bunch of work laying out pages. I think the first, maybe even the second page got through inking even. But it was totally fan project. It was totally no money was ever going to come of it unless they decided to hire us or something. But he's a working artist. He needs to pay the bills. He has mouths to feed. So we had to set it on the back burner and kept saying to each other, yeah, we're going to work on something. We're going to work on something. We're going to work on something. He went on to produce a ton of work for Darren Close in the Killaroo line. He did Killaroo Semper Fi, which was a really successful Kickstarter. And when he wound down on that, I was there waiting. So yeah, working with Ignacio is fantastic. He has this great style for this kind of pulpy action comic, and he understands my intention in the script right away. He's not afraid to make changes where he thinks they need to happen, which I know different writers, different creators are very protective about what they're doing sometimes. I am the opposite. I'm like, if you see a better way to make it happen, do it, because I may have written it wrong. You may be understanding what I said wrong. I'm like, if it's a big change, just run it by me so I can say like, yeah, sure, absolutely. If you like, yeah, I'm collaborative that way. I love the artist to get involved in a way that will better the work. So Ignacio is not afraid to do that. Ignacio also did all the lettering here. And I just want to say, there was an original version of the first page where he hand lettered everything, and I loved it, but it was just way too much work. He knocked it out of the park. But yeah, too much work. And the letterers and the people we passed it by and that he talked to about it said it's going to eat up too much of your life for what you're getting out of it. So who knows, maybe in 10 years from now, when we republish this in a collection of Crypt Sisters, we'll do a special
hand-lettered version.
Yeah, but I'm just super happy with the whole comic, and I love working with Ignacio. He, as I said before, he was also helping with the editorial decisions on the book as a whole with his art. He kind of art directing, helping pick which comics should be considered for issue 1, which should be considered for issue 2, that kind of stuff. Just so that we get those nice blending of different styles and that kind of stuff. Yeah, love Ignacio.
Apparently Travis. We were talking the other day. I think we're trying to work on seeing if we can get Ignacio on a cover or something over here as well. So
Nice.
he's a good guy. That's why when I saw he was doing your story, I'm like, how funny how everything works.
Yeah.
So I always like to ask my guest, what is your comic book origin story? You know, what's the first comic you can remember picking up off the stands or that you were reading monthly where you just couldn't get enough of it?
Yeah. I'm not ashamed of it, but I do not have a huge comics backstory back till when I was a kid. My initial run with comics was Warhammer 40,000 and Warhammer Fantasy, the Black Library, their in-house publishing. They put out a bunch of collections of graphic novels, or graphic novel-sized collections, I should say, of shorts from their various properties. And I think I bought them all on eBay because I was just a nerdy kid who was into Star Wars books. Like, I read all the expanded universe Star Wars novels well before I was of an age to do so. Like, I was a big novel reader. I was a big, novels was where I was at. Wheel of Time, I read too early. Harry Potter, I read too late. I didn't read Harry Potter until I was like 19 because I had moved beyond it already.
Yeah.
So those comics from the Black Library and Games Workshop were kind of my only intro. And I was like, oh, these are cool. Some of them are a little hard to read, but they're cool. And it wasn't until I got into college and I discovered more heavily tabletop role-playing games. And at the end of college, I picked up Magic the Gathering, and I've now been playing that on and off for years. But I walked into my local game and comic shop where I was going to university one day, and I was just like, I want to get into comics. Where should I start? Which is the worst question because there's nowhere to start in comics, right? There's no correct place to start. So I ended up picking up DC, I want to say it's called Frontier. It was a pair of graphic novels that was kind of like, they were modern novels, but it was like they were set in Golden Age, like World War II kind of timeline.
I remember New Frontier, right, Brian? Is that Darwin Cook, New Frontier? Yeah.
So those were the first two comics I bought as an adult. And I was like, oh, these were cool. I don't get what's going on because it's nothing like the characters I've known from like the internet and movies and stuff. I'm like, I get this has to be some separate thing. So then I went back and I started picking up more graphic novels of the modern stuff. And I got into some of the CW shows. I loved the Green Arrow. Stephen Amell as the Green Arrow is like peak television superhero for me. And it rolled from there. I moved across the country after college, had disposable income from a brand new job and all that kind of stuff. So I started collecting comics there. And I tried everything. I want to say some of the earliest stuff I was collecting, Low from Image Comics blew my mind as one of the early books that I started collecting issue by issue. And I have been super blessed when I finished my job out there and I was moving back across the country again to be near family. I stopped collecting for a while, and I've been really blessed to find those single issues that I missed because I came back into collecting right in time for the finale of Low. So I believe I've completed that collection now, and I filled in that time gap. The other one I'll shout out is Skull Kickers. I love Skull Kickers from Jim Zub, and since then I've become a fan of his, and I love his Conan run, and I love a bunch of the stuff he's done. But Skull Kickers touched a point in me that was D&D and was comics, and was silly but also emotional stuff and all the things I wanted out of a story at that time in my life. Skull Kickers provided, and yeah,
And here we are.
Inspiration, right? Inspiration for Breakneck, Skull Kickers. There you go.
I was just gonna say, I'm like, now I feel like we've come full circle right there. So the Kickstarter is still live for, gosh, I think you've got 21 days left still.
Yeah, 21 or 22, something like that. 21, I think.
Way up here.
Yeah.
21 days. You're obviously fulfilled. You're going for that backer. You got 126 backers right now, so you're 24 away from that other stretch goal. And you're definitely on your way there to like 3K American. I don't know what that looks like in Canadian. I'm sure higher. But
so obviously I'm in Canada, thankfully right near the border. So shipping, I have options of sending from Canada or from the US. So that's nice for trying to get better shipping numbers.
Yep.
We are $30 away from 3,000 Canadian.
There we go. So right there, guys. So the Kickstarter is Breakneck Fantasy Anthology. Gerald, where can people find you? Do you have a tiny URL for the Kickstarter, and where can they find you on Twitter? Because you mentioned you were on Twitter.
They do. I am on Twitter. I have a personal account at GVonKahr, GVonKahr. And then the anthology has its own Twitter, which is almost more active than my own right now. Because I'm focused, and that is at Breakneck Anth. And then I'm going to throw the tiny, the Bitly URL in here for you, which is just a bunch of random numbers that I've been able to
put together.
Well, that's it. I had to memorize it because keeping it written down on my hand for tweeting in the pre-campaign wasn't working.
So I'm going to put that in the chat, and that actually should go in the chat on all three platforms, YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook. But yeah, guys, feel free to check it out. If you're local to the collective, we will have retailer copies here once everything gets said and done. But definitely support these guys because we'd love to see another book as well.
Absolutely. Like I said, we've got some folks lined up for book 2 already. I really need to email them. So if you're listening, I've got you on my mind. It has been a blast working on this book. I'm excited to work on book number 2 already. And then if I have already got all the people lined up for book 2, that means I need to start lining up people for book 3. So submissions will probably be happening again right after this campaign. So if you're a creator interested in submitting to Breakneck, keep your eyes out.
For sure. And actually, I'll make sure to pass the information to our local artist, Sabian Willis, here and see if he pitches something to you as well.
Awesome.
So, Gerald, thank you so much for your time, man. We're looking forward to the book. Can't wait to see it here in store. Hope the rest of the campaign goes super awesome. Terry says, looks super cool. Thanks for the preview. So thank you so much, dude. We'll see you when the book comes out. We'll see if we can get you back on the show so you can remind people about everything that they can expect.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Danny. I appreciate it a lot. All the work you're doing reaching out to new and indie creators is a huge blessing to us.
Thank you, man. It's fun. It's just fun to meet. I would have never met Travis Gibb if we hadn't done it. So it's fun to meet all you guys, and everybody seems super nice so far. Haven't met a bad egg in the bunch yet. So
awesome. Sounds good.
Take it easy, G. Have a good one, man.
You too.
So thank you very much to our guests, Gerald and Ignacio, who was actually in the chat as well. The book is Breakneck Fantasy Anthology. We will have it here in the store if you're a fan of high fantasy, D&D, dragons, slaying things, Conan. I think Adventure Time he mentioned once as well. Definitely check that out. We'll have a lot of fun. And thank you for joining us. Tomorrow we will preview Wednesday's books, and Wednesday we'll have a dollar auction. So take it easy, everyone. I'll see you.